Hi beautiful people. So I brought out all the joyful things today. Okay, I got my Be Joyful mug and my Be Joyful shirt today, which we're going to be talking about why, because, we're going to be talking about joy today. That's probably why I would do all of this, you know what I mean? Which, by the way, this is empty, it's just for show. I keep it on my shelf for decoration. But I wanted to show it because I think it's really cute. But before I get into the video, just two quick things, okay? I wanted to tell you that merch is back, first of all. I have the Mountains Still Move shirts, the OG FarAwayDistance merch shirts, and the Always Be Kind shirts. So all of these are going to be at a store that you can find in the link in the description. I'm just on Instagram. But yeah, all of it's going to be in the description for you, and all of that. And I also got a P.O. box, which I wanted to tell you about. I'm super excited about this. I finally got a P.O. box after all these years of wanting to get it. I finally was like, why not? Just do it. So the address is going to be linked in the description for you as well. If you want to send me something, I'll write you back, and that would make me really happy because I love mail. I send a lot of letters to friends and to family, and even though you can send a text, I like to send a handwritten letter because I think it's really encouraging to get those back. So anyway, that is just the two quick announcements I had. The other thing that I want to share with you today is just honestly, I didn't even plan this. This was not something I've been thinking about for weeks. It was this morning in my time with God. I just really was like, okay, yes, I need to make a video about this, which whenever I feel that I just know it's the Lord and then I know he's going to do something through it, it's just really cool when I feel like that morning or when I'm filming at night and I just know in my heart and my spirit that I'm supposed to make a video. I get really excited because I know that God is working in that. And yeah, so I wanted to just share something with you. I've just been having a very spiritually enriching summer of studying Mere Christianity, the book by C.S. Lewis, which is so good. I've been listening to a ton of podcasts by the Bible Project, which I would highly recommend you listen to theirs or watch their videos, or both, which I like to do. And just personally, I've been studying Luke and John and just studying certain passages or studying certain words and really digging deep into what those words mean in the original language and where else they are in the Bible, and just so much of that, which is so cool when you study all of that. And that's basically what I'm going to be sharing with you, is one of those things I've studied, which just was today, by the way. But yeah, and I'm not going to fully read where I'm going to be getting this stuff from, but I would definitely encourage you to read John chapters 11 and 12, even if you've read them before. It would definitely help you to read them before I go into this. So if you want to pause this video, go ahead. If not, that's okay too. You can always read it after. But yeah, this is the story in the Bible about Lazarus and the death of Lazarus. So he was very, very sick, and Jesus was aware that he was sick. And, it even says Jesus loved Martha and her sister Lazarus, yet when he heard Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was for 2 more days, right? So he knew that this man was sick. He knew that people wanted him to go to him to heal him and to make him better, because they knew that he could do that. They had faith that he could heal him. But it says, yet when Jesus heard that he was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days, okay? Which can be kind of like, what? What does that mean, right? Well, if you go down to verse 14, so John 11:14, it says, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. Okay? For your sake, this is verse 15. For your sake, I am glad that I was not there. Now that could be so confusing to someone if you heard that. Your brother is super sick, your friend is super sick, whoever Lazarus was to you at the time, right? And Jesus says to you, I'm actually glad that I was not there. That doesn't make sense. Why would you be glad that you weren't there? You could have saved his life. And later in this chapter, they say plainly to him, they're like, you could have healed him. Why didn't you come earlier? Why didn't you save his life when you definitely could have? He says, I'm glad I was not there. And when I studied that word glad, it's actually the same word that is used in Philippians by Paul. It's let me make sure I say the Hebrew right. Hyro. Hyro is the Hebrew word, and it can mean to be glad or to rejoice. And so if you've ever read Philippians, all over Philippians is the word rejoice, all over it. I can't even remember how many times it's used. I used to know how many it's used in Philippians, but when you study that, it's all over it. Paul was rejoicing, and Paul was joyful, and Paul had joy. All over that book is that word used, and those similar words used. And what's crazy about Philippians is, to kind of go off really quick, Paul shouldn't have been rejoicing. Paul shouldn't have been joyful. Paul shouldn't have had joy, right? He was in prison, in not like a prison that you think of today, probably way worse circumstances. Paul was being beaten. Paul was being flogged. Paul was, people tried to kill him multiple times. You know what I mean? And he was rejoicing. He had joy. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. You'd think that, you know, the book of the Bible where the word joy would be used the most would be one where people would be like, yeah, I have all this like stuff. Like I have this huge house. I'm so joyful. I have this huge house. I have this huge TV. I have this awesome fast car. I have all these things and I'm so joyful. I'm so happy about that. But that's not where it's used the most, right? The book of the Bible where joy is used the most is Philippians, where the person who wrote it was going through all this stuff that you'd think he would be the most hopeless and the most just broken down, discouraged, and just be like, I want to die. And not even the one, I want to die, like I want to go and be with Jesus, because he does say that, right? He does say that, but I'm so hopeless and in despair, I just can't do this anymore. You'd think that's what he would have done, but he didn't. He uses rejoice more than anyone else in the worst of circumstances. He's been starving and I'm still joyful. Or he says, I've been starving and I'm still joyful. I've had my fill of food and I'm joyful. I've had, no matter what, I'm joyful. And that word is kind of like, I still have hope. Regardless of my circumstances, I still have hope. I am glad. I rejoice in Jesus because I found my contentment in him, right? Another story, but I wanted to make sure I got that out there before I give you this to think about, right? So Jesus again says in verse 14, Lazarus is dead, verse 15, and for your sake I am glad, I am hyro, I rejoice, I am glad that I was not there. And so Jesus has joy in that moment, which seems backwards. But if you go on, they all say, but you could have saved him. Why didn't you? And then if you keep going, when he saw the women who were weeping and who were so upset that he was dead, that their friend was dead, it says in verse 33, John 11:33, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. So Jesus was very upset. That's what those words, if you study those, mean. And another verse that's pretty famous, Jesus wept, right? Because it's like a really short verse. Jesus wept. And then the Jews said, see how he loved them. See how he loved him. And another, in 38, if you read this whole thing, it's so cool. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. And he talked about, I moved the stone and then did this whole miracle. He raised him from the dead, right? It's a cool story. But when I want you to take a different look at it, if you've heard this before, okay, Jesus was glad that he was not there because he was going to do this miracle. He was glad that he was not there because he knew he was going to perform this miracle. He was going to raise him from the dead, right? Jesus could have done a miracle when he came right away, when he heard that he was sick, and he could have healed him right there. But instead he waited. And he stayed 2 more days where he was so that he could come and do an even better miracle, do something even cooler than they expected or wanted him to do. They could have ever asked for, right? He raised him from the dead. And this is what I want to share with you is there's so many circumstances that I could give, but I'm just going to give the example of a breakup, right? Now, this is going off in a kind of life application way, but say that you are dating someone and you think they're just so absolutely amazing and you think, man, this is who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And out of nowhere, they break up with you. Or maybe just something happens that's not even, you don't think that it's going to make, the breakup happen, but it does. You get broken up with and you're just heartbroken and you're left there thinking, how could this happen? I want you to think about this. When Lazarus died, Jesus actually said, I am glad I was not there for that. And then when he actually got there, he was weeping, he was upset, he was crying with them, he was mourning with them when they mourned. But yet, as he was mourning, he was also rejoicing because he knew what he was going to do through that. He was going to perform a miracle better than they could have ever dreamed of and imagined. He raised him from the dead. And going back to that, I know I'm kind of going back and forth here. What's so cool about that story is that so many people came to know Jesus and came to follow him because of that happening. Probably that never could have happened if not for him doing the miracle that he did. If he had just healed him, who knows how many people would have come to know him, right? But he actually raised him from the dead and people knew he died. People had been visiting the tomb. They knew he had died and then he had been buried and he had been in the tomb for 4 days. And then they saw him rise from the dead. And then it says later that people would go to that town to see Lazarus, to see, wow, he really did die and he really is here again. And a bunch of people started following Jesus. And it says, oh my gosh, I love that verse. In John 12:11, it says, "For on account of him," from the story, this testimony, "many of the Jews were going over to Jesus and putting their faith in him." And I wrote in my Bible, testimonies are powerful, right? Because they knew this happened and so many people came to know him. And so going back, you might think in your circumstance, going to like a breakup example, for just a, example, could be a ton of things going on in your life, but say you get broken up with, you think this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and then bam, you get broken up with and you're heartbroken, you're left there thinking, God, how could you allow this to happen? How could this happen? What I want you to know is God is mourning with you in that. God is crying with you as you cry. God is upset with you as you get upset. Like he is there with you, present in your present. He is mourning with you, just like he mourned with him. Jesus wept in the Bible. Jesus was deeply moved and troubled. Like he feels that pain with you and he walks with you in your pain. Like he is right there with you and he will never leave your side. But at the same time that he's present in your present, he has gone before you and he is in your future too. And he sees what's ahead and he sees and is glad and is rejoicing in your circumstance. As he's mourning with you, he's rejoicing because he knows what's going to happen, what's going to be worked out for good in the circumstance, in your life, in your heart, and for the kingdom of God. Like at the end of the day, God in the Bible, it says that he works all things out for your good and for his glory. And that's in here in the story where it says like this happened so that we could see God's glory through it, And so again, whatever it is for you, if you're disheartened or discouraged or upset or just left to feel so, like you just feel like you're so hopeless right now, like how could God allow this to happen to me? What possibly could I have hope in anymore? I want you to know and think about Paul as he was sitting in prison and in horrible circumstances, being beaten and flogged and nearly killed all the time, and he still had hope in God. I want you to know that is something that we can have too. I want you to cling to that, like how he was clinging on his hope and holding on to the hope in God. I want you to have that too, and I need to have that as well. And stuff going on in my own life, but we can rejoice in God in what he's going to do and be glad in what he's going to do and have that hope while we mourn. You don't have to have one or the other where you feel like you're not a good Christian because you're not rejoicing in your circumstances. You do not have to be happy when bad things happen to you. We have to be thankful to God that he's going to do something good and be thankful in what we do have that's good, but we can mourn and cry and be upset at our current circumstances. It's okay to do that. And you can be comforted in the fact that God is going to be right there with you in that. God is going to be mourning with you when you mourn, and he's also going to be rejoicing with you at the same time because he knows what's ahead for you and he sees what's ahead and he's not finished with you yet. God still has a plan for you. God still is working all things out for your good and for his glory. And you never know. Things that happen to you that are really, really difficult and really hard, like in this story, we might never have understood like how powerful God is if he had never raised Lazarus from the dead. And then all these people in that town came to know him. But if he had just healed him the way that everyone wanted to do it, right, then that may have never happened. It's just crazy to think about. When things happen to us, we don't understand it, but we have a God who we serve who knows all, and he knows the whole plan. He sees the whole picture. He knows all things that are going to happen, and he is working everything out for your good. Yet at the same time is right there with you, mourning with you, and is weeping with you. And he will never leave your side in that. So that's the hope that we can have, is that we can rejoice in what he's going to do and rejoice in his goodness and his love and his faithfulness to you, and yet know, wow, but he is right there with me in this, and he's going to walk with me, and he will never abandon me in this. So yeah, that is all I have to say. I know this is a little bit longer of a video, but I hope that this encourages you today. And I encourage you, if you haven't read those chapters in a while, or even if you have, read John 11 and John 12, because they're awesome. So that is what I have for you today. So again, P.O. Box address if you want to send me something in the description, and merch is going to be available for a limited time. So if you want to get some, go ahead. But remember, this is so cheesy, to be joyful. I love the cup. I got it at Home Goods for a couple bucks. So yep. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day and know that you are so loved and so beautiful.
There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another